So when Mary and I got into this relationship, uh, midline was full bore happening stuff. That was in the early 90s. Midline was on the radio. It was pirate radio at the time, which later became 100.3 The X. Pirate radio was spinning Midline's first album, and there was 4 singles off of that record that received heavy rotation for 2 years. So for 2 years straight, more or less, you heard Midline on the radio 42 plays per week. That's a lot of hearing these songs. A lot was going on: record label discussion, manager discussion, tour discussions, all of those things. Very exciting time for the band, of course, and a lot of attention comes with that, and through all that, you end up having a girlfriend, and mine's name was Mary, and so she saw this whole circus act happening, and of course she was really excited about those things as well. And so when Mary and I got together, it was like she was jumping on a moving train that was going very, very fast, and she was excited for us. She was excited for me. All of those kind of things. So, I knew pretty quick when Mary and I got together. I had just this inside feeling that I knew that I would be marrying her, and I was really confident in that. And once all of that had transpired, Mary said that she had those same feelings, that she just knew that I was going to be the guy. And here we are, almost 3 decades later, still together. So it's been pretty amazing. Now, I don't remember who it was. Sorry, I'm adjusting this stand here. I don't remember who it was, but somebody had suggested I talk about balancing life, family, and being a musician. And sometimes when I do these coffee talks, I have no idea what I'm going to talk about before I hit go live. And I thought this subject was pretty important. And so last night I was sitting on the couch and I started making my notes. And I was telling Mary that what should I talk about? I was kind of avoiding this subject a little bit. And so she said, well, don't tell people or act like you have it figured out. Well, no, I'm not a good actor for one. I do not have this figured out. I wish that I could claim that I did. And I think kind of glancing at my notes here. For me, my experience, and this is kind of like a self-reflection kind of moment too, and maybe you other musicians may feel this way. I think pursuing music as a career, like I have done, there's a lot of selfishness in it. It's self-serving, so me-focused. And so because of that, so much stuff in my life has taken a back seat to that, because I was on this path. Is there stuff I would do different along the way? Oh, most definitely. most definitely I would do things differently. We can't go back and change that, but hopefully learn from those past experiences and what those outcomes were. It's I would say so what works for you might not work for me, or what works for me might not work for you. Those kind of things. But I will say that, like, if you're a musician, it's getting super clear on what your goals are. And you're working on these goals and you have a spouse, and especially if there's children involved, it's like agreeing on what that plan is. And Mary's been my cheerleader for nearly 30 years. And I knew she knew what this goal was all along before she even got involved. So there's that. And Mary's also been heavily involved with the process for so long, and then a lot of times didn't get the credit for that, and a lot of times had to stay home. Like we always, when Midline traveled, and it's probably still pretty much the case now. If Midline were to travel, it's only the band and the necessary people. Like there was a time where it was the band, our front of house person, a drum tech, and a guitar tech. So that was 7 of us traveling in a van or a motorhome and actually touring. And not only touring, but a lot of weekend warrior stuff, one night things here and there, those kind of things amongst rehearsals and blah blah blah. And sometimes Mary was pretty involved with like helping getting those shows, and that she did not get to go because that was like we didn't take people. John Klein's here. Good morning, Fred. Another interesting topic applicable to any artist. Yes, thank you, and good morning. And I won't see you today. I'll see you Thursday, right? Thursday. Yeah, I have it in my calendar. I had asked, Mary and I were hanging out with the drummer from another band. It was last spring, I think. We were going to lunch, but we were riding in his band's vehicle. His band does a lot of corporate parties and weddings and things like that. And Mary said, "So when you guys are on the road, do spouses go?" And he said, "Absolutely not." He said, "No, spouses do not go on the road." And he said, and Mary said, "Why?" And he said, "Look, this is a business to us, and we just don't have the room." The phrase is "no chicks on the road." Well, babe, you're my chick, and I definitely take you on the road now. So, that I'm getting to. I know it sounds harsh, like you don't take unnecessary people on the road. Well, I think it's circumstantial for one, and for example, there was 7 people in a van traveling. That means that every seat was taken. There was no room unless somebody wanted to sit on the floor. So I and everybody else in the band always felt like this too. Like when you bring somebody else on the road with you, your comfort level decreases. And then you take 2 unnecessary people, and now it just keeps multiplying. Like the more people you have in the mix, like the lower your comfort level is. And at the time when we had 7 people in a van or 7 people in a motorhome, we're already limited on space. And then talk about hotel rooms. When the band was just the 4 people traveling, you could get 1 hotel room and 2 people to a bed. And then as we got older, it was like, yeah, we don't really want to do that anymore. So then it's 2 hotel rooms. Then 2 hotel rooms becomes 3, and then it becomes 4, and then you just see, and the profit margin, if there was any, is completely destroyed. Right? And so those, like I said, is very there's a lot of selfishness involved in pursuing music. So I'm a little off track on like how do you balance life, family, and music. I think where you start is your spouse, because we're talking about family, right? We're not talking about balancing life and being musician like a single person. Because if you have a spouse, and then if you have children, and if you have a mortgage, and you have these responsibilities that are just part of life, carving out time to do music can be a challenge, right? Because you got to be a dad, you got to be like for me, you got to be a dad, you got to be a husband, those kind of things. You got to be the guy making the money and those kind of things. So there's a, as we all know as adults here, that there's a lot of aspects to this and a lot of things to navigate. So I would suggest, which is what Mary and I have done the last 2 years, is that we have a goal for me, and that goal includes my wife's participation in a lot of it is marketing and taking care of, you know, things like building websites and recording, and she's been great at all of that. And while she's helping me, she's still a mom. You know, we have 4 kids, 4 boys. 3 of them are, well, 2 of them are officially adults, and 1 is close to being that. And we have a little guy, Tom Keithley. Good morning, Tom. Tom, I maybe I know that you had mentioned maybe getting a ticket for Mary for NAMM show. I'm trying to get tickets for us through Soul Tone Symbols, but that is sketchy at best. So I might message you later and see if there's something we can work out. Gary, good morning, Gary Tackett. So going back to my personal situation is we consider it done. Dude, I love you. I love you even if you couldn't do it. Because Tom Keithley is a righteous dude, and I mean that sincerely. But I laugh at everything, so... yes, so Mary and I kind of reverse engineered the plan. It was like, here's the goal. Now how are we going to get to that? And in the midst of all of that, still pay our bills. And, you know, we have, like I said, we have 4 kids that are all going in 4 different directions all the time. And it is a balancing act. It's a scheduling, gymnastics of scheduling, I guess you could call it. This. I mean, it's a tangled web of stuff that's happening. And that's just how it may seem chaotic, and it probably is to a certain degree, but we've managed to make it work. And it's getting easier because we made a plan. In the past, we had a goal, but no plan of action to take to meeting this goal. And so things get ignored along the way, and sometimes that's relational, you know. And even though she's helping me, there's like the I don't know if you want to call it romance side, but that connection side sometimes was chafed because of all the other concerns, and chafing is bad and very uncomfortable. So yeah, we've made it through all of that stuff for close to 29 years, 27 married, all of that. So my advice, my unsolicited advice, is you know, balancing life, family, and being a musician is getting clear on that goal with your spouse, and knowing that there's a lot of sacrifice. That's what I should probably talk about, is like the amount of sacrifice. It's whether you're a full-time musician or you're the guy that has a band and you get together and you play out once every 2 or 3 months for fun, and you go out there and you do your thing, or whatever. That maybe that's all the involvement that anybody that you are playing with music with, and you know, are wanting from that situation, which, you know, it's different for all of us. But what I was going to say is that typically music hours, like if you're out gigging, you know, you're looking at, you know, if you have to leave and go set up, and by the time you tear down and come home, it's like 5:36 in the evening till 3 in the morning. You know, you could confidently cut out those hours of your day to do a gig, and then if you do multiple gigs throughout the week, those hours are gone to that. And then whatever hours you spend rehearsing is typically in the evening, you know, when people are off work from their day job. And you know, it's not uncommon where bands practice every Tuesday and Thursday. That's what a lot of bands do. When the early 90s through the mid 2000s, Midline rehearsed 5 nights a week if we weren't playing. That's how driven everybody in the band was. It was, okay, 5 nights a week. Before I had a girlfriend, it was 6 nights a week. And before I was in the band, it was 7 nights a week. And I said, I'm taking Sunday for me. So me, even personally, when I was single and I had 0 attachments and my financial commitments were extremely low, even I recognize that I need one day of the week where I can just step away for a moment and do whatever. I was heavily into motocross bikes in my early 20s, and so I wanted to go riding, and Sunday was a perfect day to do that. So that's what I did. So yeah, if you're the musician or you have a musician in your life, there's so much time that's carved out to dedicate to personal practice, rehearsing with your band, gigging with your band. If you're traveling, you might have a whole day's worth of travel and a whole day's worth of travel coming back, plus the day that you can easily burn up 2 to 3 days doing all that stuff. So, for example, like the sacrifice. And I'm not suggesting you do what I did. I'm just saying that this is what I've done. When Mary was pregnant with our first son, Christian, that was the same time that Midline was on the verge of getting a record deal. And we had released our 3rd album, which was called In for a Quick Garden. There's 13 or 14 songs on that record. It's ridiculously long. Very diverse sounding record for Midline. A lot of stylistic difference. It was a great album. It was our best sounding album that we had at the time as well. And so at any rate, it was go, 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 go. And then when you're done going, go some more. It was, and so I remember when Mary became pregnant, we were not planning on having kids. It was like not even in our minds. Definitely not in my mind. The stuff we talked about. We had got married in 1996, and Christian was born in 2002. So we had been married 6 years before we started having kids. Some people get married immediately, have a kid. It's like they haven't even picked out curtains for the windows yet, and they're having babies. But I digress. Mary was extremely pregnant, and 2 weeks before her due date, she looked like she could have a baby any moment. We had an opportunity to go to LA to do a showcase show for some record labels, and we had to take that shot at it. So imagine going to your wife who's 9 months pregnant and saying, I know you're about to have a baby at any moment, but I'm leaving town for a couple of days. and it's with the band. So that was it was a little touchy to navigate because Mary never had a baby before. We're new to this whole thing, and probably freaking her out that her husband's going to be gone while she could go into labor at any moment. So at the same time, she didn't want to be the one that was preventing the Midline thing from happening. And like I said, from day one, she was all in. So everybody had an agreement with my wife. We all had cell phones, and that no matter where we were, if she went into labor, we would immediately turn around and come home. We would tell the record label, look, we can't do it. And the other contingency was that if I was in LA and she went into labor, that I would just go jump a plane and come home and let everybody else figure out, taking the van home and those kind of things. So that was our agreement. Went to LA. Stymie, being from LA, we stayed at his dad's house that night. The next day we hung out with this record label, which is now defunct, but it was Gotham Records, independent label, Warner Brothers distribution, all of this kind of great stuff. Did the showcase show for them at a club there and got done. And then we had another meeting that they said they wanted to sign us. And like, there was all this excitement. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye, we got to go. Our drummer's wife is about to have a kid. So we drove all night home, getting home really early in the morning. Of course, she was still had Christian and no baby just yet. And then on her actual due date, this is where I'm talking to, like, it's very sacrificial and selfish, is we were part of the Jägermeister band program. So Jägermeister was a sponsor for the band, and they put us on a couple different Jägermeister tours and some smaller Jägermeister tours, like from the Pacific Northwest. We did several of those smaller tours. This one was with Drowning Pool. And so on her due date, we're playing with Drowning Pool at the Knitting Factory. And some of those shows where there's so many bands is just, there's a lot of stuff going on. We'll call it stuff going on. And Mary wanted to come to the show. And so Mary, being extremely uncomfortably pregnant, had driven down there, parked in the parking garage, made her way into the club just as we finished. So what had happened is they told, if Midline still wanted to be on the show, because there was like 5 other bands, they bumped our start time up about 40 minutes. So we played, done, packing up. Mary walks in the door. She was very upset and emotional, and she had every right to be. You know, she made all this effort to get ready and come down there. And I think Christian was actually ended up being born 2 weeks later than that. So, and like I said, sacrifice. It's just crazy the amount of stuff that you can say no to because you're on this path that's so self-focused. And we ended up signing that record deal, and there was a lot of stuff happening. We had a newborn in the house, and I was touring. So I'd be gone for a few days, and then I'd be home for a few days, and I'd be gone for a few days, and then I would be off to rehearsal. And then, so I had this brand new newborn at home, and I'm not present. And I wouldn't say that I regret that necessarily. Mary says he was 1 week late. Yeah, okay. Mary will know exactly each child's birth because she's the mom, right? She's going to keep all of that straight. Yeah, so we had a newborn, and Mary's, at that time, we had an Isuzu Trooper that did not have air conditioning in it. It was the Lodo model. So she's driving around in the summer in the hot 100-some plus degree weather, working for Midline, doing promotional stuff, working hand in hand with the record label, helping out with stuff, with the newborn in the car in that weather. And yeah, so it was you know, we had a goal, and we were hanging on for dear life going through all of that stuff. So I definitely would do things differently now, but yeah, I would just say reverse engineer your goal. If you're going to be a musician and you have a family and you want to have a life, like, at what level do you want to be as a musician? And, you know, if you're just the occasional guy playing in your cover band or original band, you just do stuff here and there, you know, that's totally fine. For me, my goal was to become a full-time musician. Goal achieved. Now I have other goals that I want to reach that are beyond that. Stuff that becomes bigger, you know, bigger stages, bigger audiences, bigger named artists, those kind of things. as you guys are well aware, because I've talked about it many times. But in the Mary says some people call that boundaries. Yes, good point, babe. Yeah, in this goal, as I was saying, like whatever your idea of level of musician you want to be, or success, if you want to call it that, getting your spouse involved with that process is really, really important. And like Mary's been hand in hand with me since day one. We had the goal but didn't have a plan, and it was just flying by the seat of our pants all the time, and those kind of things. Now, we have a lot of wisdom, experience and wisdom, experience and knowledge. I would say that I was watching a interview with Kenny Aronoff and Dom Famularo, um, two drummers, and they were talking about knowledge and experience is what creates wisdom. You can't have wisdom without those two things existing. So we have a lot of knowledge and wisdom now, or not knowledge and experience. So we have some wisdom on our side in this whole process. So in the control room there, we have kind of like this vision board set up, and these different categories of things that we want to do, want to accomplish, and stuff that just keeps moving the ball down the field, but trying to be very smart in our approach about that, and our time allocated to those things, and just working the plan together is really great. And my wife is also a full-time musician. Um, that helps, I think, in the understanding department. Definitely helps. Um, I know some people, musician friends of mine, that their spouses don't know anything about music. They don't understand. They enjoy music, but they don't understand the process that you go through. And I think that could be really tough on your relationship if you guys don't understand each other. And Mary grew up with musician parents, so she too had been around the whole music thing, opera, but still there's a lot of dedication to that, right? Her mom and dad and stepmom all have been professional singers and performers, and so she kind of grew up in that environment herself. Greg says another big piece for many musicians is to actually set a goal in the first place. Yeah, most definitely. And I would say younger musicians starting out, their main goal is to get together and jam, and then if those people stay, that, I mean, that was my process. I found people I went to school with who I knew play guitar or bass or sang or whatever, and I would put these jam sessions together at my house and see what we could do, what we could come up with, what we could make, and that was the goal at that point. And then as you get older, like I wanted to be a rock star, so that was my goal. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but that was my goal. So now, being an adult with children getting older and a wife that's still supportive, it's pretty awesome having this plan and working the plan and doing that. So that's where I think the balance part comes into that whole equation: balancing life, family, and being a musician. Um, being a musician is where my income comes from now. It used to be being a landscaper. I think in some ways being a landscaper even absorbed more time than being a musician. Uh, sometimes I work 7 days a week, 12, 14-hour days, and just be pummeled into the ground, and then just do it again and again and again. And you guys know that story, so I'm out of that mess. Uh, so yeah, so I gotta have the income to pay the bills, and so there's still sacrifice. Like maybe I know for sure, like next weekend I'm gonna be missing my son's marching band performance because I will be on the road with Cliff, And I have to honor that commitment I made a long time ago. That's one thing that I have here is, let's see, reverse engineering, blah, blah, what is that? Honoring your commitments. I know that I've played music with people, and you have this date set for a performance you're going to go and do, and 2 or 3 days before, somebody in the band comes and says, I can't do that because I got to do laundry before I go on my trip to Mexico. Really? You're gonna cancel? Now we're in a bind to find somebody to cover for you. That's a really uncomfortable position to be in. So honoring your commitments is really, really important too. And sometimes that requires some sacrifice on the family side. And I try not to be that dad anymore where I'm not available. But at the other side of the coin is my kids have grown up in that environment where dad is playing drums, and I've my children are musicians too, and I think the one important fact in that is that they see me passionate about music. Their mom is passionate about music, and you know living this dream, as ridiculous as some people might seem to think it is. That was a really odd sentence. But I think you know what I mean. Yeah, make a goal, make a plan, and then work that plan. And as you're working that plan, sometimes it evolves into something else. You might be going this direction and then realize, oh, now this other thing materialized, and so you're going to do a little course correction. Now you're going that way a little bit. But if you hadn't done the work in the first place, you wouldn't know to do this little course correction. And I think that would be the big takeaway, from years ago, is we had a goal, but no plan on how to work towards that goal. It was just flying by the seat of our pants, and that's not a good approach. Not a good approach. If we could have had somebody on our side when we were younger to help guide us better, I think the outcome would have been a lot different. But it is what it is. It is what it is, and maybe sharing these experiences with people will help. So if you do nothing, you get nothing. That's something I learned from watching Kenny Aronoff videos. I'm a big Kenny Aronoff fan. I just love his energy and his excitement for being a drummer and being an amazing, accomplished musician. And he's very inspiring. So if you guys YouTube Kenny Aronoff videos, it's he's got a great story. Yeah, but you got to have a plan. Like, you got to do something every day, just doing something. But yeah, balance is important. I've been out of balance for so long, and now within the last 2 years, it feels like some stuff's equalizing, but at the same time, really making big leaps forward in what I want to accomplish. And I think that's because just got focused on what I wanted to do. Yeah. So lack of focus in the past was tough to navigate. And like I said, Mary and I have weathered some pretty good storms along the way, and we're still together. And I don't, I made a post about our wedding anniversary and said we've been married for 27 years. The secret, the one key ingredient, the one thing that has made it all work for me is I genuinely love my wife. I love my wife, even though there's been times where she may think that was not the case. But yes, I love my wife, and that's the secret. That's the secret. I definitely love my wife. So there you go. What's the other comments here? Greg always has good stuff. I was never good at balance. Good on you for making it all work, my friend. Thank you. Gary says you are on the right path. And Gary, I appreciate that. When people like Gary, who's got this fantastic resume, when I get encouragement from people like him, it's exciting for me because uh, this plan that I'm working, and as it materializes into different things, when somebody like Gary comes along and goes, "Yeah, you're doing all the right stuff," and then I can sit and talk to Gary, and he goes, "Man, this all the stuff you're doing is really great. Maybe if you did a little bump this way, that's going to open some more doors for you, or things of that nature." Um, but I would never have that opportunity to discuss those kind of things with somebody like Gary if I wasn't working the plan to begin with. I would never cross paths with Gary, at least not on the level that I wanted to connect with him. So it's really great stuff, Gary. I appreciate your mentorship and your friendship for sure.